video is about my main problem with the Bible. And it's not about the Bible not having anything that's interesting to explore in it. I think it is pretty effective to explore certain ideas. But it is not an effective book in terms of guiding one through life and helping them understand how to be right with God and how to truly live their lives and how to apply insight effectively and have a discerning heart. It uses words like sense and discernment and a discerning heart, but it doesn't truly teach one how to do that. And we'll explore why that is. First of all, in the ancient world, who were the main deities, or key deities at least, in confusing people about what to do? Well, the storm gods, right? Zeus, okay, Odin, okay. You have the El, right, and the storm gods of the Mesopotamian area, okay. You had Set, okay, the deity of confusion, storms, foreigners, sexual immorality, right? Foreigners, faux rain ears, who they listen to, okay, who they believe is in charge. One of the main purposes of Set, the deity of confusion, who was there for thousands of years before the Bible came, and still has followers to this day. There's a temple of Set in San Francisco, not far from the Grand Lodge of Masonry in California. Okay, so these guys wanted you to worship them. Baal was he's like a big cowboy, right, with a fluffy body, right? The big white guy, the big white conservative, we see his form all too often these days. And Set is a smaller guy, like a priest, a small priest. Hey guys, welcome to a small, skinnier priest. There's a lot of priests like that out there. Right there in Genesis, some people have interpreted it as the genes of Isis. It says that Set replaced Abel. The word Bible, when I talk about gospel, go spell, okay? Bible. Now, you don't have to believe the wordplay here. The wordplay just shows you the obvious. It says, in case you missed it before, Bible and Bible are connected. Bisexual, Bibal, Bibel, and the Lady of Byblos, Balat, pagan deities. Okay? So the Bible is from a pagan nation, Rome. Constantine didn't convert until his deathbed. And it obviously has pagan ideas in it. And we'll get to that shortly. So it's basically moral precision versus a book of confusion by a deity of confusion who's using his muscle to confuse you about who's really doing it. It's really the small sage. And just like in Hinduism, there was a period of time where the sages replaced the warrior order. It happened in Egypt, it happened in India, to some degree it happened in Europe and the Middle East, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we have these kind of African warrior guys marching out. That's why Indians are black, right? The thinner, as you go back in time, there's a thinner line between the dark-skinned Indian and the black guy, to make a long story short. There's a Dravidian bloodline, etc. So these guys kind of marched around the world and installed their kind of martial art order, and not all of them were good guys, mind you. And then the sages replaced them. But back in Africa was the core and true martial art order, the essence. Okay, so part of what these idols do is they're confusing you about whose side you're on. The idol, confuse you about how you see things, okay? So what these idols do, they face each other's essence. Sense, alpha sense, presence, prosense, and essence are connected. Again, sense, alpha sense, prosense, presence, and essence are connected. All right, so they're facing the essence. What is the essence of Set? He deals in confusion. And the Scorpion King followed both Set and Min, the deity of chemistry. Why doesn't the Bible prepare you more for chemical attacks, for conspiracies? Set dealt in teaming up with people against other people. So moving on. The first point. I'm going to have to go through this quickly for a laundry list of reasons. Well, of course, I went through, okay, Horus, the hero son of God, the hero son of the leopard, the falcon, the master martial art form. Why don't they mention Horus? Why don't they give him his credit? Why don't they mention all the good things that the Horus martial artist did? Okay, they were fighting for moral intensity before there was any prophets or Bible around using their own scale. These were the ancient good guys. Why aren't they mentioned? I'll be right back. All right, so they feel me, they do little things to make it harder for me, cause my nose to run, try to disgust you kind of thing. Bear with me, okay? This is important, that's why they're doing this. The first point, ill-gotten gain stance. They're ripping people off, romantically and otherwise, and it's expected. And they even tell people to submit to authorities in the system that rips them off as the expected and most often applied interpretation and translation. Translation. Interpretation. Interpret alpha shun. Trans L alpha shun. Okay. So we have Romans 13, Jesus and Pilate. One of the Gospels of Jesus, at least, he says that God gave Pilate authority over him, and so he's not going to resist him. And he says if his kingdom was of this world, he would tell his servants would fight to the death to freedom. I'm 100% against this, even though this explanation, even though there's hidden wisdom there. The vast majority of people are simple-minded. We expect people to argue about translations. We expect the state and the governments to have the upper hand. So this book is basically for the state, the government to have the upper hand and to control the rate of understanding. And if you're not confused by, to the nth degree by the time you get to Revelations, you're extremely confused. How does it end? How it ends is very significant. Who's getting punished and why? Who's the good guys? Who's the bad guys? They've utterly confused that, and that is for the deity of confusion, who replaces Abel in Genesis. Set replaces Abel. Right? Cain kills Abel. Okay? So, and they go on and on about murder, and that thou shalt not kill. And they confuse this issue. The Jews are fighting with people. Jesus said, don't think I came to bring peace, but I came to bring a sword. He says, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. They're saying, can I live by the sword? Can I not live by the sword? The Jews did in the Old Testament, if for nothing else, and so on and so forth, right? It's there to confuse you. The simple answer is, yes, you can resist to the death, and then the church themselves launched the Crusades and the Inquisition, okay? So if the people who misinterpret the Bible say you can fight to the death, you can, If you're in the military and you're fighting for a country that your church approves of, you can, right? So there's all kinds of interpretations here. And then there's Cathars who basically let themselves be killed. Okay. So they also confuse still in point number one, they confuse redemption and repentance. They have a weak stance on the Christos. Who is Christ? Christ is actually, in the true interpretation, the continuity of kings. It is the idea that a king comes into. He kind of emulates, he takes on what he's learned from his father, like father, like son. So that like father, like son, the Holy Father, the King of Kings, is the continuity of the true morality in the Igbo royal bloodline. That's who the Christ is, the Christos, the anointed one. They confuse you about breeding, tech, and drugging, and how you're running out of time. They're saying, wait till Jesus comes back, and don't fight back. But they're confusing you about how these guys are using drugs and psychology and technology, and they're breeding people to be stupid, okay? And they're dumbing them down by confusing women about what intelligence actually is, right? Mental prowess, mental power, versus this kind of female kind of book smarts. That's why women often do better than men in school, and there's more females in higher education in America than there are men, because it's a female kind of moon temple energy. And again, Psalm 19, Malachi, the Lord thy God is a sun and shield, the bright morning star in Revelations. Jesus says, I am the bright morning star. You go to church on Sunday. And they confuse the sun worship thing with the princes of Judah or something are said to worship the sun, but there's more to it than that. The sun is actually a symbol of the bridegroom, and you have to kind of ascertain why that is. They confuse that. Point number two, the turn the other cheek, die by the sword argument. You'll be handed over. What would Jesus do? The expected translation. Okay? So basically, they're confusing you by saying, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. You'll be handed over to be flogged. And they're saying, don't fight back. Okay? And they're feeling me hard, folks. And I'm using technology and causing me to have problems in this video. I'm going to have to make a part two. Basically, my other points has to do, and point number three is the most important. Let me just finish that. No truth exists outside of the martial art order. There's a moral foundation, a moral regeneration, right? Reproduction, So no truth exists outside the martial art order, as moral, mental, romantic, and spiritual clarity are connected to obedience to the mind, body, soul, spirit, martial art order. This is also why the Bible twists the idea of evolution. Evolution, to some degree, does occur. things change over time, and they change to fit the environment. Okay, it's very obvious. You know, have human beings always look the same? No. Why not? And how long have they been here relative compared to the other living organisms that go way back and so on and so forth? You know, the living organisms that were here before that changed. Okay, life changes over time. Okay, you know, there weren't human beings before the Earth formed. You know. Anyway, so they confuse that because they want you to confuse you about they practice God's plan in reverse, right? The little Jew, white Jew guy versus who's uncoordinated, who has a female intelligence, versus the tall, coordinated martial art hero that nature naturally put with moral intensity, focused moral intensity, moral precision over the other groups of people. All right. So the theft of the African leadership. Let me end it there. It's going to give me a hard time about uploading it when it's too long. Long story.